friends. Today we're going to actually do the painting of our little gull on the rocks. As you can see, I did take some charcoal and I did redraw my rocks. That only took about 5 minutes, so I've got that in. I've also redrawn the line of the bank, and now we're ready to get started. Those of you who studied with me know that I like to use Giroux a lot, but I think for this background I will use Giroux in the rocks because they're nice and small. They've got nice size for those rocks. But I think for the background, given how abstract it is, I'm just going to start with the soft pastels and put one into another. So I'm going to begin up here with this darker area, and I might even try some really dark Terry Ludwig, just to get some of this in here quickly. And it's not a solid piece of dark, it's just some back there. It's where behind the bushes. So we're gonna put some greens into that now. It's a little bit lighter down here. I'm going to go up with well, that's a little too light. I think this violet might work here, but not up there. That's a little too light. Let's try this. Well, that's kind of light too. No, I'm going to go back to my Ludwig. They're all a little too light, I think. This actually works really nicely. And go on over to this side, put a little more of the violet in. Over here, there's kind of an area that's catching some light. Just get some interesting color in it. Go to some lighter violets. And just assume this is kind of some rocks or whatever. So I'm using various greens, some lighter, some darker. I'm trying to integrate the violet with the green so that there's no real shapes here. It's just color. That's all it is. It's just color back here. It's really abstract. Don't want any one area to stand out too much. So that's a beginning for our background. Fill that in up there. Okay. So then we get down to this area, which is the bank. It's the edge of the bank, basically. And there's some violets in here. And then we get into reflection of all of this. So we have to put some violet down here. Now the violet in the reflection probably is not going to be quite as light, as dark. It's going to be a little lighter. Just as the greens are not going to be as dark either. So I'm going to start out with the green like this, because I'm seeing some really nice lighter green in here. So I'm going to just put that in like that. Starting out a little darker than where I'll go, but I'm seeing more violet as this down here. I'm going to go to an even lighter violet. And in here is where those really warm grasses are, so I don't want to cover that up just yet. And behind the bird, it's got to be really, really soft. It's got to be really soft. But we want it to be dark enough so that bird is going to stand out. I'm going to go to some lighter green. And let's put in the, just going to start out with this Giraud. These are the brighter green grasses. I'm starting from the bottom, just flat. This is working nicely. And I'm just working up into and I want some of this come up around there like that. So I'm just going to fill in this area. Now, when you're doing water and reflections, it's tempting to use your finger. And I could do a little of that because this is, you know, this will actually make it look a little more like reflected water because there's just too much busyness going on in here. So this is the one time when I give you permission to use your fingers. I'm going to have to work carefully around my little bird here. And more violet into that. And I'm gonna do a little more because I think this is actually working pretty nicely in here. It just gives it a really soft look, which is what I'm after. And having done that, I can always then go back and add a few more pieces of color on top, just so that it's not too flat and uninteresting looking. Up on the top, I'm really seeing some of the verticals coming in. I want to have, that's not the right one. I want to break up this top part with some green. This is better. It's just too much of a solid. Okay, that's standing out way too much. That's not good over there. That's just not good. So we're gonna kill this over here. Just gonna put some green on over that. Make it a little more suggestive. I try a little bit of softer pastel in this area. And the area around the bird is not real great. So I'm going to do a little more. He needs a little more violet in here. And why don't we just go ahead and put in some of the bird. I'm going to start him out with a really light Giro violet. And I think the light is over on this side. We'll do a little more work on him, but at least we kind of got him in there. Okay, so so this is the top, and we're going to take a break. Okay, welcome back. Miraculously, these rocks got painted without you seeing them. I have to apologize. Our video camera filled up, and without us knowing it, the second video we filmed is kind of not there. So, I'm going to talk to you about these rocks, which I have painted, and I've used a whole variety of colors. I've used violets, greens, I've got different values of them. I've used several values of a warm, light, kind of a neutral color in here, some pinkish color, a number of different colors. And I've really tried to pay attention to the edges, okay? This is our center of interest here. At one point, I had a really dark line here and a dark line there. And I thought, well, that's good, it leads up to the gull, but then I realized, no, it was a real distraction from the gull. The gull stands out. You don't need anything else to point the eye to that. So I softened all of that. I've also tried to soften edges. I had a hard line here. So I've softened that edge and softened this edge so that everything will go to the gull. So I'm sorry you didn't get to see me paint the rocks, but there they are. But that's not the difficult part of this painting. The rest of it is. This is going to be the difficult part. Because this is water with seaweed sitting on top. And in my photo, it's pretty light. But I can see that there are dark pieces underneath. So I'm just going to put a little of this dark violet down here. Not a lot. Oops, that's a rock. Just so I have some, and I'm also seeing some actual pieces of this kind of warm reddish color, which is kind of nice. So I'm just going to put a little hint of that color in here. And we'll start out with putting that seaweed on the rock, and we'll see how that works. And I've created, I've got a new box of colors that I'm using, and I've filmed these so that you can see what they are. I'm going to start out with, this is a Rocher pastel, goes on very softly, so it's easy to get it on here. And this is bright, it's too bright for what I've got, but it's really easy to use this to get started, and actually it looks pretty good. I can tame that down with a little bit of green. I think I want to put some hints of dark in here. Some little pieces of this red. Some lighter green, perhaps. So I'm kind of developing the colors for this seaweed. And it's kind of nice to do it here on this rock. Seems to be a little bit darker in the back, so some other greens and such. Okay, so that worked out pretty well. So I think what I'm going to do then, this whole rock here is covered with this seaweed. This is a river, but it's a river right near the ocean, so this is all tidal, I'm sure. So that's why the seaweed. So I'm going to use this to just kind of lay this in, and that'll give me some idea of what I'm going to do here. This is kind of a tricky part. This is a tricky part of the painting. This rock is also completely covered. I'll probably lose it. So I want to think about this, the shape. I want to maintain the shape. Okay, so that's a pretty good start for this. You see it's quite different in color, but that's okay. I'm going to do the same thing I did. So we'll just develop this rock. It's got some violet in it. It's got some pieces of the magenta. It's got some dark greens. Not very dark. And it's got a lot of light on it, so I'm going to have to go to something a little bit lighter. This is a very light whitish green that I'm using at the moment. And I can go down to even more light, but that's a good start. I'm going to bring back some violets from my other box and get a little more violet in here. It's nice because it's going to continue the whole theme of this color theme of violet, green, and orange. See some light back here, some light. This is a nice, this is even a little bit lighter. This is nice. This has got some really nice light pieces coming into it. I can put a little of that up there. So you see I'm really, I've got a very difficult, confusing area, but by starting out with one color and kind of laying that in with that one color and then building up, we can conquer this difficult area. Put some violet in here. Go back to greens. I think I can do this fairly quickly. We'll see. I don't want to I don't want to lose the sense that this is a rock here, so I'm going to try and get a little of this diagonal in here. I can then go into this, and the hint of the darks can do that. Okay, let's go back to that lighter green. The pieces where there's a lot of light. working pretty well. I want to put some more of that in here. Maybe add a little bit more orangey color, but it's really more green. However, I've got to keep in mind that this is going to be green, so that's why I've got to think about the colors that I put into this seaweed. And I also know that this photo is way too light, it's washed out. I just took a look at the original photo, and boy, these rocks are completely gray. So I'm really happy with the colors I've got in the rocks, and the fact that this is a much more interesting picture than what I started out with. Okay. When you have a confusing area like this, you know, you want to think about how you develop the pattern of lights and darks into it. Because what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to lead the eye that way to the bird. That's what I'm trying to do, okay? And then I have to gradually get away from this and develop just the color of the water. And I'm seeing violet in here, and I've decided to just start this out with this light violet color, which will help tie the whole area together. But there's a whole lot of light in here. I don't know if I want to put as much as I see there, though. I don't know. I don't want to lose my pattern. Ooh, and my pastel is completely falling apart. More dark here. Okay, and now that's not done, but it's at least it's there. It can be worked on some more. I'm going to put in the color of the water, and I decided I wanted to start out a little darker on the top, and I forgot that. So we're going to start a little darker here. In my photo, I actually have a lot more area. I've made the rocks bigger, brought it down more. That's fine, because this area is not as interesting anyway. So I'm going to go on over this violet with a little bit of a slightly darker green than, and then I'm going to go to this lighter green. Now this is water, this is different from that. This is water with a lot of energy to it. I do not want to use my fingers to blend this water. I don't think. We'll see. But I don't think I want to do that. I could. And then I could put the highlights on top. I mean, it's one way of smoothing it out a bit. But go back to the little bit of darker. Actually, a little darker green up there. So by just putting multiple layers of pastel down, I'll get a smoother surface. But I still am not. You see this undercolor, this underpainting is still showing through. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Because I'm going to put the light highlights on it. so now I have to look at the pattern of the water. These are ripples. Basically, this light hitting the ripples in the water. And they're going to be bigger as they get closest to us. They're going to be smaller and come together as they go away. So part of the light here is the light of the ripples plus the light on the seaweed. And so it's a little confusing, but I want all of this to, I want to find a way to emphasize my composition here. These are the kind of things you can do. A scratchy pastel. So by starting down here and really emphasizing this pattern, I can then maybe do some a little bit lighter pieces over here. I really want to give emphasis to this. And now I don't know. Let's just, what happens if I do that? Would that make it easier? Would that make it better? I don't know. Maybe it's a little too busy in places, so a little bit of finger blending, a little bit. But I really prefer to use the pastel to blend. And I can go even lighter, okay? If I decide, well, that's nice, but I want a little more action. So here's an even whiter, these are all greens, but this is a very whitish green. So I can even add more light to this and help emphasize this pattern that I'm looking for. This is all composition. Remember, composition is the most important thing. And I've been watching a lot of Ian Roberts' videos lately, and I really highly recommend his videos, his book, Mastering Composition. I'm not going to give specific demos on composition because he's captured it all. He's really good. But you know that composition is one of the main things that I think is really important. If you don't have a good composition, you just shouldn't even do the painting. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a little more with this seaweed area. A little more of that. Maybe a little more of the sense of orange in here. This is a balance for all the green and the I'm going to just step away, see what it looks like. Well, I am having a problem with this. I'm finding it a little too busy. Thinking I need to do a little more with this. So now a picture like this, you know, you can continue working on forever. It might never be done, and I will obviously do more with it. But I think this is a good place to stop for now. We've covered the entire piece. During the break, I did a little bit more work up here. I really like the way this is working up here. I didn't go with the real light up here because I think that would be a distraction because it's all about this area. I tried to tone this down a little bit with a little violet on over it. I've tried to build the eye to go up to this area, but there's lots of interest in here, lots of color in these rocks. But it's pretty much that triad of violet, green, and a little bits of orange. So I'm pretty happy with this picture. As I say, I'll probably do some more, but this is a good place to stop. So I hope you enjoyed this demo. I'm sorry you didn't get to see the rocks being painted, but perhaps another one. Thanks a lot. Bye. Stay well.